Good morning and
was
welcome. Good morning and welcome to Today in LA. On behalf of Mike Amos Sr. and Mike Amos Jr., who's calling in from Florida, I'm Forrest Lee, and we have a special guest this Veterans Day. We have Lynn Johnson, a native of Dozier, who played at Dozier and also played at Auburn University under Shug Jordan. And Lynn, thank you for coming to Troy, Alabama. It's a pleasure to have you. And I've met you years ago when I was an eighth grader trying to block you in, but we won't get into that just yet. But Lynn, if you will, just tell us about your parents and your siblings and life in Dozier as a young kid.
Well, my parents were Monroe and Elizabeth Johnson. I grew up 4 miles from Dozier and 4 miles from Brantley, right split down the middle, I guess you'd say. And my daddy was in a logging operation, and mother maiden name was Elizabeth Raines, and my granddaddy had a store right down the road, and I'd run down there and give me something to eat all the time.
Okay. Now, what about your brothers? Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I had 2 older brothers. They both ended up being in the logging operations, and I had a younger sister that worried me to death, about 5 years younger than me.
Okay. Now, what were their name? What is
Jimmy and Alan were my 2 older brothers. Jimmy was the oldest, 7 years older than me, and Alan was next, and he was 6 years older than me. And then Deborah was 5 years older than me, and Deborah married a logger. So the whole family was a big logging operation down there. Everybody's own business, but had a lot of logging going on in Crenshaw County.
And are your brothers and sisters all still living?
I got my oldest brother's still alive, and my sister is with my brother that I actually partnered up with, and we became partners in about 1980. He died 3 years ago now.
Yeah. All right. Your wife and children. Your wife's name?
Yeah, wife was Diane Kelso.
Kelso.
Before she became a Johnson. And I met her. When I was 5 years old. I was riding in the back of my dad's pickup, and we were riding down a dirt road, and her family lived about a mile from my family down the dirt road. And I was driving up this little hill, clay hill. I looked up on top of the bank, and there she stood with pearl handled cowboy pistols, play pistol, toy pistols, and a cowboy hat on. And I looked up and I said, "Boy, she'd be fun to play with, So,
and you were about 5?
I was 5 years old, and she was too. And then first grade at Dozier, the following September, there she sat. And I said, "That's that girl with a little pearl handle pistol." So,
started court. Now, your high school graduating class was 1973. And how many of the graduates married, fella?
We had... I married Diane, and then a good friend of mine, Perry, married Wanda. So there's 4 of us that married out of the 14. There's only 14 of us, and 4 of us married.
Okay, so that means 8?
Yeah.
8,
yeah.
Okay.
And so then, we still get together every Tuesday. And
whereabouts?
At Chicken Shack.
Chicken Shack, I just had to bring it out.
Oh, and we stick together a lot. And, just came back from a trip with Barry and Wanda up to the Smoky Mountains to see all the colorful leaves and stuff, and enjoyed that. And we all stay pretty close, 7 or 8 of us anyway.
And y'all have 2 daughters?
2 daughters. Courtney's the oldest, a school teacher in Laverne High School, and Lacey is a cosmetologist in Brantley.
And what church do y'all attend, Lynn?
I'm going to Sasser Church of Christ, which is right across the street from Highway 29, right across Highway 29.
Sasser?
Sasser.
Sasser Church of Christ.
Yeah.
So you live between Brantley and Delusia.
Brantley and Dozier, between Brantley and Dozier on the 29 that goes down to Delusia, yeah.
Okay. Now, in high school, what all sports and activities were you involved in?
Well, when you're in a small school like that, and if they play something, you want to play it, So I played baseball, football, and basketball.
Okay.
And football I could play. I just was out there in basketball and baseball.
Did you ever foul out in basketball?
Every game. I was real big in high school, too, and I'd get out there and I'd play in center, and I'd turn around and I'd run into somebody and knock them down. They'd call a foul on me, I fouled out about every game.
Now when you were, I guess I don't want to use the word pulpwood, but you were handling wood with your bare hands for your dad logging.
Yeah, back in the '60s, before everything got so mechanized like it is now, we cut short wood. You had to cut the little pieces of pulpwood up in 5-foot lengths and put them on the truck by hand, and that's the way it first started. You know, the pulpwood, and so 2 older brothers, 5 and 6 years older than me, but I was almost twice as big as them when I was 12 or 13, when they were 17 or 18. So they'd say, Lynn, grab that big one. And so I'd get the big cut, you put it on your shoulder, you walk up to the truck and throw it up on the truck. And they'd get all the little pieces. So that's what got me so strong, I think.
Yeah. Well, tell us about the story of your weightlifting apparatus at Dozier. Listen to this, Mike.
Well,
Okay.
Dozier wasn't known for weightlifting at all, I guess.
Didn't have a weight room.
Didn't have a weight room, didn't have any weights. So I knew that I needed to be working out with weights. So I got some 5-gallon syrup buckets out of the, 1-gallon syrup buckets out of the lunchroom that we empty. And I filled it with cement. I had an iron pipe, galvanized pipe, and I stuck it down in there and leaned it up till it hardened in that cement, hardened in that 1-gallon bucket. And then I got another bucket and filled it up with cement and stuck the other rod in it. And I don't know how much it weighed, but I made me some weights
Out of syrup buckets.
out of syrup bucket and cement.
And then you had an uncle that bought you. Tell us a story about the weight sets your uncle.
Yeah,
weight sets he had to end up buying.
Yeah, and then I had Uncle Darrell Murphy, who was an Auburn alumni, and he loved Auburn. And when I signed with Auburn, he came over and said, you need to work out with weights and get stronger. And so I said, I don't have any weights. I showed him what I had, and so he went and bought me those little plastic coated cement weights. You could buy a 110-pound set.
Mm-hmm.
So he bought me that 110-pound set, and I just grabbed a hold of it, and I was just playing with it. You know, it wasn't enough weight really. He said, go on, Lee. I was throwing him around. He went and bought another 110-pound set. So I had 220 pounds of weights to work out with to try to get stronger. And all.
Now, the recruiting of Lynn Johnson in high school, you signed with Auburn, but what was the first recruiting? How did the recruiting go, and what was your first desire and all that kind of stuff? You had an older brother that...
Yeah, Alan, when he went to college here in Troy, and he tried out for the football team, and I was just tickled to death. I was hoping that he would get to make the team and all, and he tried, but he decided he couldn't make it. But I loved Troy and had watched him practice, and had come to some games with him while he was in college. You know, I was 13 or 14, I guess, while he was trying out. And so I wanted to go to Troy. That was my dream, to go to Troy. And Coach Travis Johnson, who was my cousin.
He was your head coach.
Was my head coach at Dozier. And he told me, he said, you just wait. You can go to the SEC. And so Troy was the first one to offer me a scholarship. And so I had that.
Who was the head coach, Lynn? Do you remember?
I can't remember, but Coach Booth.
Bob Booth.
Bob Booth
Okay.
was recruiting me.
Okay.
I can remember his name, but I can't
Last
remember the head
Booth,
coach.
okay.
Yeah. Because I never did even make a visit to Troy. They just came down, and Coach Booth did, and told me, he said, you got an offer to play it. I'm offering you a scholarship to come to Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Georgia started recruiting me next.
Vince Dooley.
Vince Dooley.
Vince Dooley.
Vince Dooley was a great coach, a great man.
How many times did you get to go to Athens?
I probably went 4 or 5 times.
And you watched ball games and
Yeah,
stuff?
I watched ball games, and then just would go over and spend the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I really fell in love with that place, and was I was an Alabama fan growing up because Mal Moore niece was in my class too,
Mm-hmm.
and so
They called him the Dozier Flash, didn't they?
yeah, that's right. He was back in the 50s, I think it was, Mike. But he recruited me to Alabama, and of course, I was an Alabama fan, all excited about getting to go up there, and then I got my heart broken when I got up there because at recruiting trips to Georgia, Vince Dooley would just pat me on the back and say, "You a big man. We want you to come up here." I was actually a really big man for those days.
How big were you?
I was 6'3", about 280, 275 or 280. I think I was 275 when I signed the scholarship with Auburn. But Vince Dooley would just pat me on the back. Coach Jordan on our recruiting trips would pat me on the back. So I go to Alabama and I'm all excited, and Bear Bryant looks at me and says, "Well, you might could play for me if you wasn't so fat." So it just broke my heart.
How many times did you go to Tuscaloosa?
Just one time.
Just one time.
I didn't even stay for the game after he told me that. It just broke my heart. So I left.
What years are we talking about in the 70s?
What year?
What year?
That was being recruited in 72.
72.
Yeah.
That was your
So that's
senior
when,
football
that's when
season.
Alabama was winning a lot of national championships.
Oh yeah, they were. The first game I got to start at Auburn, they were ranked number 1 in the nation. I think they won it in 73. But I got as a freshman, I got to start against Alabama as a freshman. We got beat 35-0, and I never touched the guy. The linebacker was Woodrow Lowe at that time.
You never touched it.
He was an All-American, and I never touched him.
Which is a big deal to play as a freshman because freshmen weren't allowed to play until what?
70.
Were they?
71 or 72. Well, I think 72 because of the Marshall.
Playing.
The plane crash at Marshall. You remember that in 70 or 71, and
Oh yeah.
that's what allowed the NCAA. I mean, they let Marshall help play freshmen that year to even have a team, and then the NCAA the next year let freshmen play, and I was lucky enough to get to do that.
What?
So who was your position coach at Auburn when you got there?
Oh, it was Coach Pat Morris. He played at Mississippi State and was Auburn's offensive line coach, and he was good to me and mean as a snake, but that's what you have to be.
Well, what sold you on Auburn? Tell us the recruiting trips to Auburn. This is pretty good, Mike. It's another good story.
So when my recruiting trip to Georgia, we go through a buffet line to get lunch, or supper or anything like that at their dorm. Same way at Alabama, you went through and got just told what you want. You got the plate full, and you go sit down. So when I get to Auburn, I go into the dining hall, and there's tables that seat 6 football players, and so I get to eat with the team as a recruit. So I don't know what's going on. I go in, I stand there by my chair, and one of the coaches say the blessing. All the food's laid on the table. And when they say the blessing, it just went wild. When the blessing was over,
everybody, the chow has begun.
Yeah, and everybody sits down and they start pouring tea. And one guy sitting across from me was an All-American linebacker at Auburn, Ken Burnich. And we had pork chops that day. I'll never forget it. He grabs that pork chop plate and just pours it over in the middle of the table and pours all the pork chops out in the middle of the table and holds the plate up real high and says, "Chow boy." And I look back at the kitchen, and there's probably 10 or 15 guys standing back there with little white coats on, like chef coats or whatever, and they came running out. And one of them grabs that plate and goes back into the kitchen, comes back out with a plate of pork chops. And as he starts to set it down, old Burnich grabs his arm and just turns the plate over and pours that many more pork chops out on the table and says, "Bring us some more." and it's just like that. And the green beans, everybody gets those, and they hold that plate up, and they just guys running everywhere. And I'm just watching all of it to start with. Then I got to look at the pork chop pile was getting gone pretty quick, so I grabbed me a pork chop. But they was just chaos, really. But it was fun. Yeah. I thought to myself, I'm gonna get plenty to eat up here.
Like Mama's cooking.
Yeah, just like Mama's cooking.
Well, tell them what Coach Jordan told you on Sundays.
Oh yeah, and then Coach Jordan gets up after when I get to Auburn. He says, "Okay, men, now Sundays you don't eat like this. Parents may be here. Y'all mind your manners." So we had to sit and calmly take a pork chop off the plate and pass it along to each other. because mamas and dads would be eating lunch with us. So
Now, so when were you married in college? Tell us that
yeah,
story.
my wife and I, first grade through the 12th together, and then I go to Auburn, and she goes to Andalusia, LBW,
Okay.
and we already had this plan. She was going to take secretarial science for 2 years, and then transfer to Auburn. So, boy, I missed her so bad, being with somebody that long. So I'd already made the varsity as a freshman. And back in the 70s, it's not like Auburn is now. There was trees all around us. I was out between the dorm and the practice field, sitting under an oak tree, watching squirrels run through the trees and stuff. Coach Morris come by.
Coach who?
Coach Pat Morris.
Pat Morris.
He was going over to the dorm, and he said, "What are you doing out there, big man?" I said, "Missing my girlfriend, missing home." He said, "Come here and get in the car." So he took me out to a catfish place. Instead of us going to the dorm that night, took me out to a catfish place. For supper.
Okay.
And he said, I can't do nothing about your mom and daddy, but I can get that girlfriend up here and get her a job. So that sounded good to me, So anyway, he got her a job with a purchasing department my sophomore year. So she moves back to Auburn, get an apartment and everything. I got to stay in a dorm, and she's in the apartment over there, and so we were apart 1 year, and then she lived up there a year, my sophomore year, and then between my sophomore and junior year of the summer of '75, we got married.
And you could get married, Coach
Yeah.
Jordan was okay.
He was fine with that. They had what they called a married football scholarship,
Okay.
which was the same thing I was getting as a single, except they allowed you couldn't stay in a dorm anymore, so they allowed money for housing.
Yes, sir.
But everything else was the same, except at $125 a month for rent. So we got married and we've been together ever since,
Well, that's great. And how long have you been?
So did you play offensive tackle or guard?
I played offensive guard, yeah.
Ward number 62.
Yeah, it was number 62.
And who was your quarterback when you were at Auburn?
Well, I had the first quarterback was Randy Walls, who was.
Brundage.
You remember Randy? He was from Brundage over here. Yeah.
Played for Bob Booth.
Yeah.
Had twin sisters.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Well, that's what seen from a distance. I was a little boy.
Yeah, but I just he was a senior my freshman year. He was a quarterback, and then my sophomore year, a guy from Leeton, Alabama, Phil Gargis.
Phil Gargis.
He was tough as nails. I'll tell you, he was my quarterback for my sophomore and junior, and then he was the same year I was, and then I get hurt, and he quarterbacks the '76 team, but I'm redshirted because of a knee injury, and so when I come back in '77, it was my first year under Coach Barfield. And Charlie Trotman was our quarterback.
Charlie Trotman.
Yeah, from up Montgomery. And
then Larry Blakeney was on that staff too, wasn't he?
Yeah, Larry came in '77. Coach Morris, my offensive line coach that recruited me and all, he left when Coach Jordan left. And so they got in Coach King, Jim King, to be offensive line coach, who was the head coach at Livingston back in those days. And he came to Auburn as the offensive line coach. And Coach Blakeney, Larry came from Vestavia Hills High School over to Auburn as an assistant offensive line coach, and but he just had.
Where did Coach Jordan? Did he stay in Auburn after he retired, or did he move somewhere else?
No, he lived right in the same house the whole time, and he had a little office. I could still visit him, in '76 and '77. I could still go visit him in his office.
Well, one thing I want to mention, Veterans Day, Coach Shug Jordan was in World War II. I believe he was in Normandy, D-Day. He served in the European Theater, Purple Heart. When he healed, he went to the Pacific Theater.
He did.
So Shug Jordan and all veterans, past and present, thank you for your service. But that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And inspiring.
And he coached college basketball and was a head football coach at Auburn. He did both.
Yeah, he coached college basketball at one time.
Well, when you first got there, your first roommate.
Yeah. The first guy I met, of course, playing at Dozier and playing schools like Goshen and Brantley and all of them. I mean, and I'm 270 and 80 pounds. I never saw anybody anywhere close to big as I was. So, I get to Auburn and I walk in, and I don't know a soul. I walk in the dorm there and the lobby of Sewell Hall, and laying on the couch with his head on one armrest and his knees on the other and his feet sticking off about 2-3 foot off the end of the couch is a guy named Tom Ball, and he stands up. He's 6'8" and weighs 320. And he says, "I'm Tom Ball. Are you Lynn Johnson?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I signed us up to be roommates." And I looked at him, 6'8", 320 pounds, and I thought, what have I gotten into up here?
Oh, no, he was big.
And so he and I were roommates for a season, but he was from Miami, and he was not very country boy like I was. And I met an old boy that was from Mentone, Alabama, named Ronnie Jones. And we moved in together the winter quarter.
What position did he play?
He was an offensive tackle, and he was 6'6", 260 pounds, so he was tall too. But everybody everywhere I looked, there was big guys up there, but he and I, we would go hunting together when we had time and stuff, and I enjoyed being his roommate.
Well, Lynn, your first game at Auburn, you played on the freshman team. Tell us about that, and then the next game, how you got moved to the varsity.
Okay. Well, as back in those days, you had freshman football. They played 5 games. And so we had our first freshman game against Florida on a Monday.
How'd we do?
Beat them. I can't remember that score, but we won the game. But it was the Monday right after Auburn had played Tennessee up in Knoxville. And one of the starting offensive guards, Andy Steele, he was a junior. He got put out for the season with an arm injury, elbow injury, hyperextended it. And anyway, he was out for the season. So Coach Morris comes into the dressing room right before the freshman game with Florida and says, "I'm going to watch you offensive linemen, and I'm going to pick one of y'all out to move up to the varsity because we've lost Andy Steele for the year."
Were there any freshmen starting for Auburn at that time?
No.
Okay, there was no
one started.
Okay.
None at all at that time. So I got moved up to the varsity, and the very next week we were going to play Ole Miss.
Okay.
And they had a defensive tackle, Gentle Ben Williams was his name. I'll never forget his name. Oh, he was
not gentle.
He was not gentle, and he was big. So I was nervous about, that's who was right in front of me, defensive tackle right in front of me. They played a full-man front, so he was right in front of me as a guard. And we talk about him all week. Everybody was talking about Gentle Ben. So so Coach Morris comes to me, right before the game, before I go out, and I'm nervous as I could be. And he says, "I'm going to put you in the game and get a little used to this SEC football, And so he said, "Put you in for a few plays." And I said, "Okay, yes, sir." I was on third team. So so I get out on the, excuse me, I get out on the sideline. I'm so nervous. I just can't. I'm just jerking, so nervous. And Roger Mitchell is a defensive back. He's a captain of our team in '73. He was a senior. So he comes down through there, and he's pumping everybody up and patting them on his shoulder and all. And he gets to me, and he says, "Big Lynn, let's go." And he said, "Big Lynn, you nervous?" I reckon you could see it. It was falling off of you. I said, "I got more butterflies than I ever had in all my life." And I was that way. And he said, "You don't worry about it, buddy. You're going to do good. You get in, you're going to do great." And I said, "You think so?" He said, "Yeah, who you going to block?" And I said, "Gentle Ben." And he said, "Oh, no." So my nerves went right back up sky high, But anyway, I did get in the one play, but I did not block Gentle Ben.
I tell you what, let's take a quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back with Lynn Johnson. We want to thank Premier Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Troy and Jason Gregory and his staff. Thank you for them. Thank you for P.S. Falk Furniture located in Enterprise. Also would like to thank Bird's Drugs, Troll Bank and Trust, and Roadmart. We'll be back after these messages.
It's that time again. It's your trade. Get up to $5,000 minimum trade value. For your trade this weekend. Appraisers on site. For this and get up to $5,000 minimum trade value. What do you mean?
Good morning and welcome back to the show. On behalf of Mike Amos Sr. and Michael Jr., I'm Forrest Lee, and we have a special guest, Lynn Johnson. We're back, and happy Veterans Day to everyone. And we're talking with Lynn Johnson, who played at Dozier High School and at Auburn University. So we were at your freshman year, and any other memorable events your freshman year that you can share with us?
I come from Dozier, maybe 75 people in the stands to watch a game, maybe that many. I don't know if it's that many or not, but and then to go up in that first game against Ole Miss, to run out on that field and play in War Eagle, and 65,000 fans at that time. I will never forget that feeling. I'll never forget it. And as a matter of fact, running out on that field, and they start playing War Eagle every time, I still get the chill bumps now.
When they do that.
Yeah, when they do that.
Good morning. Welcome to Today in L.A.
Hey, Forrest.
Hello.
Hey, this is Willie Smith in Brantley.
Yes, sir.
I'm a good friend with Lynn Johnson. I was going to tell you a quick story on it.
All right, Mr. Smith. Tell it.
All right, Lynn, after the Alabama game his freshman year, he came back home, and Auburn was they was picking bowl games. I believe Auburn was right on the border of getting bowl. And I said, Lynn, y'all going to get to go to a bowl game? He said, well, I don't know. He said, they talk like we may go to Sun Bowl. I said, well, are you excited about that? He said, no. He said, I'd rather come home and go squirrel hunting.
Well, did you go to Sun Bowl?
Yeah.
In El Paso, Texas.
Sun Bowl. El Paso, Texas. That's right.
Play?
We played Missouri, and we lost. Yeah. That's pretty good. That just goes to
anyway, you can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy.
Do you still squirrel hunt?
I do to this day.
Never been.
You had never been squirrel hunting. Oh, that was that's a story in itself, Willie, about squirrel hunting while I was going to school. Now, Now, my family, it was a tradition. The first day of squirrel season, my dad wouldn't even work. And he would take all us brothers out of school, or let us get out of school, and we'd go squirrel hunting and spend the whole day. And what we killed that morning, he'd cook over a fire, roast a squirrel over a fire. And we just enjoy those big swamp and all back of the house.
Yeah. So y'all, the Kanaka River is behind your home.
That's where
y'all grew up.
Yeah.
Because y'all grew up on that side of the road.
That's right. Yeah. And then we'd go in that swamp, and the trees were virgin timber back in the 60s, never been cut or anything. And there was some squirrels. There was some trees so tall we couldn't even shoot a squirrel out of the top of them with a shotgun because they were too far away. But we grew up doing that, and that's why I think I was in love with squirrel hunting so good.
Because your daddy would let you go.
Yeah, we did. We got to go squirrel hunting all the time, and really, I was getting really homesick about that time because I had been gone from. I left in August 1st or so, and it was right after the Alabama game before I got to come home. And you think about all the squirrel hunting I'd done missed. Is what Hey, well, that's pretty good.
All right. I'm enjoying your show.
Well,
We love Lynn Johnson.
thank you, Mr. Willie.
Thank
Thank you,
Willie.
Mr. Smith. Squirrel hunting.
Yeah.
Lane Johnson,
So
he's
as far as Auburn, I guess back then y'all only played 11 games. Is that right?
Yeah, we played 11 games at that time. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the bowl games, I guess back then they would determine a national championship
Before the bowl.
before the actual bowl game.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, hang on just a minute. We got
Okay.
another caller. Good morning. Welcome to Today in L.A.
Hey, Forrest, Will Matthews. How y'all doing this morning?
Good. We got Lynn Johnson, the Auburn great lineman, with us that played under Shug Jordan back in the 70s. This is Will Matthews
Okay.
from Ozark.
Hey, Will.
Hell, he's old like I am.
That's right.
Yeah, Will played SEC golf with all SEC golfer at Vanderbilt, and
Oh, okay.
a lawyer in Ozark. Calls our show every day. Good friend of ours. But Will, you probably remember Auburn back in the 70s. He played for Coach Jordan, and then the first year for Doug Barfield. Is that correct?
Yeah, I played his second year, actually. The first year I was injured. I played on his second team, yeah.
What are some other memorable events like the game ball day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was probably my most memorable. As a senior, we played in Athens, Georgia, against the University of Georgia, and they had a good team that year. And William Andrews, fullback, junior that year, 77, who went on to Atlanta Falcons and made it big till he got hurt. Mm-hmm. But he was mainly used for a blocking back in those days until we got to the Georgia game, and Coach Barfield and the offensive coordinator had some kind of, they saw something at Georgia that was, we ran right over me. Weakness in Georgia's, of course, I had to block an All-American linebacker named Ben Zambezi was his name. Zambezi, yeah. He was an All-American. But anyway, we ran right over, and William gained about 200 and something yards, over 250 yards, I believe, that game. And they give him the game ball. We won the game 33-14 between the hedges. That was always fun to get over there and win one, you know. But we won that game, and Coach Barfield starts to hand the game ball to William Andrews for gaining so many yards and scoring so many touchdowns. William is shaking his head, and he got it in his hand and handed it right to me. But this is a man that deserves a game ball.
Well, that was great. And your relationship is still big today and special today with the players that you play.
Oh, my. What we went through, you know, and all playing together and being together so much, the camaraderie of everybody. I mean, and when we get back together or see each other at an Auburn ball game, it's just like we were never apart. For 40 years, we hadn't been apart. You know, we've been apart, but it's just like we're right back in school again or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of the players I touch base with weekly or monthly anyway.
That's been almost 50 years.
Yeah, it's getting closer to 50 years now.
Close to 50 years.
Yeah.
Now, how many games do you get to go to a year, Lynn?
I usually try to go to one or two, or sometimes three or four. I used to get season tickets, and then as your family gets bigger, and I got a grandson playing now at Faulkner.
Okay.
He's a sophomore this year, and
Do they have a game this weekend?
they do, but I don't even know who they're playing this week. He got hurt, and so he's not with the travel squad right now. So,
Okay.
so I'm not having to follow him. I'm not following him right now, like I should be, I guess. But he was.
So when you were at Auburn, how many bowl games, Josh, you get to participate in?
Well, we played in two. Is all we got to play in my freshman year and my sophomore year. My sophomore year, we finished 10-2. Won our bowl game. Played Texas in the Gator Bowl, and I had to block another All-American down there. Doug English was his name, a defensive tackle, and the running back for Texas. What was that?
Earl Campbell?
Yeah, Earl Campbell was the running back for Texas at that time. So I got
that's a story I would be telling the rest of my life. I played against Earl Campbell.
Yeah, but he was a freshman, so I think he was a freshman. He was freshman or sophomore, so he wasn't as good as he was when he was a senior. But we beat him 27-3, and we finished sixth in the nation that year. That was the best that we ever finished.
Well, Lynn, I know you don't want to pat yourself on the back, but some of the accolades that you were able to garner while you were at Auburn, all SEC,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
name some other things.
Well, I was in '77. I was captain of the team. I made All Southeastern Conference in '77 as offensive guard. I got to go to the Senior Bowl and play, and the Blue and Gray game in Montgomery as All-Stars, and enjoyed both of those games.
Didn't you receive a special award from Shug Jordan when he?
I did, and I won the. When he retired, he made an award for the outstanding senior football player, and so '77 I got the second award for the outstanding senior football player.
Right.
From him, that was quite an honor. He presented it to me.
Right. And I've seen that in your home.
Yeah.
Hold on, Mike. Welcome to Today in L.A.
Hey, Forrest, it's me. I got dropped off. I'm headed to the beach.
Okay.
I was in that bad area around between Slocum and Hartford.
Well, again, we got Lynn Johnson from Dozier, Alabama. He played at Auburn. He lives between Brantley and Dozier. And after your football career, then you started a logging business with one of your brothers, or were you
Yeah, well, I came home actually. Yeah, I did. I came home and went to work in the family business, which was my dad owned it, and my two older brothers were working in the business, and then I just joined in with them.
Was it Johnson
Putwood at that time.
Johnson Putwood?
And then, so we decided a couple of years later, my oldest brother got out on his own. Daddy retired, and me and Alan, my brother next to me, became Johnson Brothers Logging, and Jimmy, the oldest brother, became Johnson Logging. So started my career in logging that way.
So when you retired, you have a son-in-law in the logging business?
Yeah, I retired 2 years ago, and my youngest daughter's husband, Jesse Taylor from up here in Troy, he has worked with me for 10 years.
Okay.
So when I retired, he took over. And
So Jesse's from Troy?
Jesse's from Troy, yeah.
What high school did he go to? Do you?
Jaws Henderson.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jesse Taylor. I don't know if I'd know him. Might know
Yeah.
if I saw him.
Yeah.
You know,
What's your opinion going on at Auburn right now? What do you think Auburn needs to do as far as their new football coach?
Well, I hope they get somebody that can recruit well, and I know we're in the lowest place we've been in a long time, but I think it'll turn around and get the right guy in. I didn't really like the hire of Harsin from Boise State, but I got no say so in any of that. But it's tough coaching in the SEC when you got Alabama across the line over there, winning what they're winning every year.
and you're sandwiched between them and Georgia,
And Georgia, yeah, Georgia.
and now Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, did
Florida.
you ever in your life growing up? I mean, you had Schutz had to go against Bear Bryant. I mean, did you ever think there'd be a guy that a lot of people consider better than Bryant?
Never.
Nick Saban?
Never would have thought that in my life. No, but he is.
Hard to believe that they've had a Bear Bryant and Nick Saban at Alabama.
That's true.
Of course, Senator Tuberville beat Alabama 6 straight times.
Yeah.
So you never know about that rivalry.
You never know.
I think Auburn going to find a good coach. I think that they're going to have to wait till the season's over. Recruiting now is so much different than when you grew up. Now the big recruiting day is in December instead of February.
Yeah.
So that's changed college football, where you see coaches get fired in the middle of the season now more often because they're trying to shore up a recruiting class.
Exactly. That's true. Yep.
And with the transfer portal, the right person hired, which I think they're going to hire a dynamic guy.
I think so.
Some of these high school kids who have committed to other schools who are not doing well, like Texas A&M's losing some, you hire the right guy. I'm going to go for a fresh start at Auburn. We're going to get some transfers in,
Yep.
and I can play as a freshman, and we're going to be from here. It's going to be an immediate.
I hope so. Yeah, I
really
hope
do.
so. Yeah.
I've been a Bama fan all my life.
Yeah.
But since I met this guy, I really think a lot of Auburn, and we got an Auburn golf ball right there, if you can tell it. And a kid that played at Charles Henderson played for me at the middle school, played at Charles Henderson, played at Auburn, neck injury, was a captain on the national championship team.
Yeah.
Zach Etheridge.
I remember him,
is on staff, and we wished him the best.
Yeah.
And we've had some players at Charles Henderson to roll through there and play a little bit. But let me tell you.
You had Ra White, and then you had
Richard McBride.
Yeah, you've had about 4 or 5 Detroit kids go up there and play.
Well, let me tell you the story of how I met Lynn Johnson. I'm in the 8th grade. Goshen's has lost about 20-something games in a row. Dwight Falk is coaching the spring game. And back then, we started spring practice somewhere around late February, March. We practiced about 10 or 12 days, and then we had a jamboree. Well, we played 2 teams. One of those teams was Dozier. I was the starting right guard. I was about 5'7" in the 8th grade. I think I was 13 years old. 5'7", about 135. First play, we didn't have kicking during spring training, so we've got the ball. And I come to the line and I look up. There's Lynn Johnson. There's Lynn Johnson. So I'm adding to the story. So I called timeout. Timeout. We need to run play. I'm making this part up now. So I go to the sideline. Coach Falk, have you seen this guy? Can I go kiss my mother? So anyway, I come back, and he said, before I come back, Coach Falk says, well, listen, just do your best. You do your best, I'll get you a gift certificate to the Chicken Shack. Got you, Coach. So I come back, and we call the play. We come to the line. I reach over. I said, I'm Forrest Lee. I said, what's your name? He said, Lynn Johnson. I said, do you like chicken? But I'm adding to it. But I had to try to block him, and all I went for his ankles. We didn't run behind me. So that was that story. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, I'm at the Mossy Grove eating, and somebody said, there's Lynn Johnson out there on the front porch. I said, the guy from Dozier that played at Auburn? They said, yeah. So I went out there and met you.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then we just kind of found each other, I guess you'd say, but he's a very...
So when you played at Dozier growing up, like how many guys were on y'all's high school team? 25?
Actually, players, we had about 25, but we dressed out everybody from the 7th grade up. Actual players was anywhere from 12 to 15 that actually could play,
Did y'all have some pretty decent teams?
We were okay. We were 6-4 and 5-5 and
just a small group.
So growing up in Dozier now, you go to Brantley, I guess. Is that right? Or you go to
yeah. Dozier closed in 1990 or 91.
I think that's right.
And as a matter of fact, when Dozier closed, I was coaching at Brantley, offensive line coach. And when I started coaching, Dozier still had a team. And I had really mixed emotions about how am I going to coach at Brantley, the biggest rival Dozier had, against Dozier. And so they didn't have enough guys to have a team that year, so they forfeited all their games. And so I didn't get to coach against Dozier, and then the following year, my second year of coaching, Dozier closed, and all those boys came to. So I got to coach Dozier boys in Brantley.
And who was the other person that helped those guys transition from Dozier with a lot of pride to Brantley?
Zeke Burnett.
Zeke Burnett.
Yeah,
Played at West Alabama.
Played at West Alabama, and he was on my team at Dozier. I was a senior, he was a junior. So we had, and then he went on to have a great career, and he came back to Brantley and was on the staff at Brantley for a while. But that was his first year, and I talked to him. I said, let's get these Dozier boys, let's get them together here with the Brantley boys, and let's have a football team. And we went that first year of coaching that Dozier forfeited, counting the Dozier win. We were 4-6 that year at Brantley. Dozier combines with Brantley, and we go 10-2 the next year, and 15-0 the next year for a state championship.
There you go. Who was the head coach then and the quarterback that 15-0 run? I can't remember the head coach.
It was
Lowry?
Big Roland.
Big
Roland Jones. Big Roland Jones, and then his son was an assistant, and then me and Zeke Burnett, and had a couple more guys. Coach Stallworth, who was a great basketball coach.
Tony?
Yeah, Tony Stallworth. Let me tell you a story about him. That first year, he was already on the staff at Brantley. The first year I coached there, we'd lost 2 or 3 games in the first 2 or 3 games, and I'd never coached before, but I guess I had knowledge of the game, but I just didn't know if it was thing that I could do this or not. So we were walking out to practice one day, and you ever talk to Tony very much? Have you talked to him?
Just a touch.
Okay, he talks fast, and everything when he says something. But anyway,
he's the athletic director for all of Crenshaw County.
He is now.
That's right.
Yeah.
They've got an athletic director for the entire county.
Yeah.
Plus, they're building a big track, I think, between Luverne and Brantley.
They are. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Anyway, we were starting to walk out, and Tony's kind of assisting me with the offensive line, and so we started walking out. I said, Coach, I really don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm good enough to do this at all. I don't know if we, and of course we didn't have very many good players on that team. And Coach Starr said, Coach Johnson, you can't drive a car if you ain't got no motor in it. So I stayed with it. I stuck with it. Just trying to continue coaching,
So Chuck and Wesley Person never played football when they were at Brantley.
Oh, yes, they did.
Or did they just
Wesley was the quarterback.
Wesley played. I can't remember Chuck.
Yeah.
I don't remember about Chuck, but Wesley did.
I mean, I can't imagine what Chuck would have been like playing tight end or receiver. 6'8", and then Wesley was 6'2".
Yeah.
And Wesley probably was a shortstop on the baseball team, but I know he played quarterback for Brantley.
Yeah, he did.
And probably
Yeah,
free
somebody
safety.
said Wesley Person was the best softball player they'd ever seen, too, when he played softball.
I'm trying to think of the guy that was quarterback that 93 football team, and Derek was his first name. He went on to Auburn and played basketball. He had an offer for football, but he chose basketball. Caldwell. Derek Caldwell.
He's cousins to the persons, isn't he?
Okay,
Forrest,
yeah.
Sir.
I want to make your guess a little bit.
All right.
I'm going to put you that he was in school with Lee Gross from Ozark.
I played at Auburn with Lee. Yeah, Lee was one of my best buddies. He was a senior. He was a junior when I was a freshman up there, and he, as a sophomore, when I was a sophomore, he was a senior, and he was the captain of our team. He called me Big Daddy.
Yeah, Lee was my next door neighbor in Dothan for probably 8 or 9 years, and then Boogie got to liking horses and made him buy a ranch, and they moved out in the country.
Yeah. That was when we would have a meeting on Friday night, and Lee would come in and he'd say, "I was talking with Betty," and they was married at the time, and
They still are.
yeah, I know, but that was I was talking with Betty, and she said we ought to do so and so, so Betty was a part of that team too.
Yeah.
Now, what all were your nicknames in high school and college?
Well, Big Lynn was always high school, and that carried on to college. But then, they had so many players up there, so I went from Big Lynn to Big Daddy, Big Man. And the best one was the Bulldozer from Dozier.
The Bulldozer from Dozier.
And then they just kind of shut that down, shortened that down to Dozier. Mm-hmm. So everybody called me Dozier for a lot of times.
Well, Lynn, talk about Coach Jordan. What are some special memories you have of him that you'd like to share about Coach Jordan?
Well, just how his motivational speeches before a game was just would get you so fired up that you could you think you could tear a wall down, and to get out on the field. I remember that very much. And also, his door was always open. If you needed to talk to him about any problem you had, and his door was open to you, and he was just a good man. And I feel honored to be able to have played under him. Mm-hmm. Sure do.
Shug Jordan.
Yep.
And this is honoring Shug Jordan and all other veterans.
Yeah.
And the difference is this honors all veterans. And I got a little thing about this I wanted to share. It was called Armistice Day and then Remembrance Day. And then later on, there was a fellow by the name of Raymond Weeks. He was a veteran from Birmingham. He wanted to name it Veterans and all veterans. And so it was Dwight D. Eisenhower who labeled it Veterans Day for all veterans. And we also have Memorial Day, which honors those veterans who have passed away in their service to our country. But
we probably have Army already in town from West Point for the big game this weekend as well.
That's something now.
Of course, I read last night this could be a historic event in Troy, Alabama Saturday. 500 tickets left for the Troy Army game. Should be a hard sellout. Could be the biggest crowd in Troy football history this weekend.
That's great. That's great.
Do you want to come to the game? I can get you some tickets.
I guess I got something already I got to do.
Okay.
Thank you though. Thank you though.
But Troy will play Saturday at 2:30. It'll be on the NFL Network. If anybody has the NFL Network as a channel, you can watch it live on national TV. Of course, we need to mention all the high school games tonight as well. Charles Henderson travels to Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. Is Brantley at home tonight?
They play at Linden.
Linden.
Yeah.
That'll be a really tough trip to Linden.
Yeah, Sweetwater's at Elba. Crenshaw Christian's at Jackson. We have Pike County is at Alabama Christian. G.W. Long's at Reeltown. Big game, Highland Home at Ayrton.
Highland Home at Ayrton, how many people you think are going to try to get into that stadium?
They're probably heading that way now.
Yeah.
That stadium maybe holds, 1,000, 1,500?
Probably.
I have no
Probably
idea.
so, yeah.
And we also have Dothan at Auburn and Enterprises at Phoenix City. So those are some of our local teams.
Enterprise Phoenix City ought to be a really good game as well.
Right.
It's playoff time, and of course, Charles Henderson is coming off winning 2 games last year for us, and now it's 9-1.
That's correct. They're 9-1. Pike County didn't win a game last year, and Pike County is 7-3, and they are rolling. So that's a big turnaround for both of those.
What do you think about Auburn this weekend? You think they're going to bounce back and win one against A&M?
Maybe we can win this one. I hope so. Yeah. It needs to be time to win one. We almost got Mississippi State last week. That was a better performance than we'd been having, I think.
And Texas A&M's kind of spiraling them. They're in this big spiral, and that's kind of surprising.
Me too. That really surprised me.
But this is Lynn's helmet that's on the set. Just pick it up, Lynn. Let's see. And on the back, those are Eagles. Is that a Wilson hat?
Yeah, that's Wilson.
Wilson?
Yeah.
A Wilson?
Yeah.
Did you wear that all 4 years or just your senior year?
Probably just my senior year. I don't remember for sure. Maybe my helmet the whole. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But
back then I guess it was Wilson, Bike, Rodell. I mean, what were the helmets you wore back then?
yeah.
Auburn. One thing about Auburn was always loyal to Russell. Auburn wore Russell.
We had a lot of
everything, don't they?
A lot of our game wear, and our practice gear was Russell. Yeah, you're right.
Now,
Everybody traveling up to Tallahassee tonight. Tallassee's not too far from Auburn. We used to go to the Tallahassee Hotel all the time.
I think
My sister went to school at Auburn.
take exit 26. Lynn, now that you've retired, what are some things that you do in your spare time as hobbies?
Well, I wanted a sawmill, one of those little portable sawmills, for about 20 years, and I finally bought it when I retired. I'm too old to run it. But no, I do. I saw a little bit of cedar lumber and stuff like that, and I got a little woodworking shop, and I love to build different things, swings and chairs and all kind of whatnots and stuff. And
Well, I'm going to mention this to our audience. If you need anybody to visit in a red suit, you can call me, and I'll get you hooked up with somebody that I know that makes visits in red suits, and that's right around the corner. But we got Thanksgiving coming up. Again, that's Veterans Day. Thank you for your service. And anything else, Michael, you'd like to throw at Lynn while we got him?
No, I'm excited to meet you and glad you came on the show. It was a great story.
Glad to be here. I really enjoyed it.
I'll have to meet you in Forest of Monster Grove one day.
Or the Chicken Shack.
Yeah. This is Forrest Lee and Lynn Johnson. We eat chicken, and when we do, we go to Luverne to visit the Moneys at the Chicken Shack.
I tell you what, Chicken Shack needs to be a sponsor.
I need to go get them.
Yeah.
335-6566. That's 335-6566. We were in Georgia. Jody and I were in Georgia, living in Georgia. So we came to Roy and Sheila Farmer's house one day and visited. Let's just get something from the Chicken Shack. Let's just call it in. And let's look it up. I said, it's 335. I knew it by heart from growing up. I can remember it was in the other location.
Yeah. I remember that
And I had a bucket. We'd get a bucket of chicken. I'd cut the hole out and I'd play basketball. Well, Lynn, again, thank you for coming. We certainly appreciate it. On behalf of his dad, Mike Sr., this is Michael Jr., and I'm Forrest Lee. And I want to thank Lynn for driving up to Troy, Alabama. You can see this replay at 1:30 on Troy Cable. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at TC2 TV. And have a great weekend. Go Trojans, and we'll see you Monday morning on Today in LA with Mike Amos.